G'day my gorgeous gardening guardians of the earth. Let's talk about the top 5 flowers for your garden. Now this is all subjective depending on what an individual wants or what conditions you're dealing with in your garden, but these are 5 flowers that I've grown for years and years and really enjoy and can talk about from personal experience. There's many more awesome flowers in my garden, like this cone flower which I grew from seed, but this is my first year enjoying these cone flowers and I don't really know enough to inform people about it, so this is a little teaser of what may come. I'll put some other teaser plants in this intro just to show you some new flowers that I'm dealing with before we get into the top 5. Laccanalias. Now these must have been my first favorite flower from when I was a little kid, 3 or 4 years old. I remember my grandmother Nana Packer had some by her back door in a little pot and they just didn't look real to me. They looked like little bananas, and as a child I always called them banana flowers, but their common name is soldier boys. And I remember back then in the 80s it was in fashion with all the old ladies at the time to have a pot full of Laccannalia bulbs next to their front door or their back door or somewhere around their house, and they were just really common back then, but they fell out of fashion really fast in the 90s and just sort of were left in the gardens that they were planted around. I don't know what happened because they're such a striking, beautiful plant. The shade of yellow just makes me so happy after a long cold winter. Lacanalias are bulbs and they're really hardy, low maintenance plants. They make an appearance with their leaves in late winter, which lets me know that I have to start preparing for spring. And when that first wave of warmth comes through in spring, the flowers start to bloom. They're the first flowers to bloom in my garden every year. And then as they die back, comes summer and go dormant. They need no further care. The main thing to remember is they like to be planted shallow, so plant them with 1 centimeter or 2 of soil above them, and they multiply quite readily, so you can dig them up every summer and move them around or give them away as gifts. I think they look best stacked together in a pot in a group situation. You can really appreciate a strong splash of banana yellow in early spring when all the other plants are still recovering from winter. They can handle full sun, but I think to get the best results out of Laccanalias is a little bit of shade, so mostly sun and some part shade during the day, because their leaves are quite decorative as well, especially in late winter before the flower appears. There's leopard spots on the leaves, and when the plants are in full sun, the leaves tend to yellow and fray quite early, where when there's a bit of shade, the leaves stay lush and gorgeous. Even though the common name for Laccanalias is soldier boys, I still prefer to call them banana flowers, because just like when I was a little kid, they look like bananas hanging off a tree, just perfectly ripe. And they remind me of my nan, and they remind me of being a little kid, so they're always welcome in my garden. And now for our second top flower Mola, which is just a showstopper. It's an Australian native, a beautiful, vibrant, geometric pattern going on with the flower. It's enjoyable from all angles. It's so enjoyable watching the flower form these amazing spirals, which, if you're in Australia, attract a range of native insects. They can grow as perennials in warmer climates, or if you live in a seasonal area of the world like I do, you can grow them from seed as annuals every year. They are a little bit fussy as seedlings. They like to be well watered, but once they establish themselves, they're really tough. They can handle quite rich soil like a vegetable garden, or they can handle quite dry soil like other areas of your garden. So they're pretty versatile plants, but I find they do prefer full sun to really do their best and flower the most. They set off so many flowers. It's incredible. They make a great cut flower and can last for 2 or 3 weeks in a vase. I don't understand why this plant isn't more popular. It's definitely one of my favorites. Angelica. I love Angelica. When I was 18 and I made my first proper for real vegetable garden, I brought an Angelica plant from the local nursery and I absolutely fell in love with it. I didn't read the label. I didn't realize it was a biannual, so it lives for 2 years. It just grows leaves for the first year, and then the second year it flowers. So without even seeing the flower, I fell in love with it. And when winter came that first year growing it, I pulled it out not knowing I had to wait another year for the flower. But it was like something took me over. When I pulled out the Angelica plant, I was so in love with it. I had to rip the thick roots apart and see what was inside, and it started bleeding this beautiful red sap, and I really just wanted to drink it. My whole body just wanted to eat the roots of the Angelica plant, and it wasn't till years later that I found out that the roots are actually a powerful medicine, and you can dry them and make them into a tea. The leaves are completely edible and taste and smell just like celery. It's in the same family as celery and parsley and carrots, and the flavor and smell is so strong you only need a little bit of the leaf for that celery flavor when you're cooking with it. The stems are also edible and delicious. It's such a good plant for your health, especially for women's health, but it's great for men as well. Now, because it's essentially a green flower, I thought it might just be me who was obsessed with it and who thought it was so striking and stunning, but everyone else who sees the Angelica flower really falls in love with it as well. In nature, Angelica prefers to grow along water channels, along waterways, and appreciates a bit of shade. Angelica can handle the full sun, but will need water to get through it and to thrive and to look really good. When they can enjoy the morning sun and spend the rest of the day in shade, they are quite a hardy plant, but out in the sun, like I said, they do require water to look good. Now that I've been growing Angelica for years and years, I grow from seed. I let the seeds fall naturally. The seeds need to sit wet and cold through the winter in order to germinate and grow. So if I plant the seeds, I plant them at the end of summer, and they'll sit there cold and wet for 3 months, and then in spring they'll grow quite happily. You can try and achieve the same results by putting the seeds in the fridge for 2 or 3 months and then planting them, but I just like to let the seeds do their own thing. They come up so strong and healthy. So a great self-seeder in the garden that just comes up naturally for me every year. And while they're young, I'll move the little seedlings around in the places I want them to grow for the next 2 years. Austral Indigo is my favorite native wildflower and grows wild all around me, but is also a great garden plant. It's really hardy. It can survive drought, dry conditions, poor soil. The seeds are rather touchy and need special care to see them through, but once established, they're just the toughest plant. The pink flower blooms from the black head, which is just really great to see close up. I love the contrast of black and pink together. Austral Indigo is very happy in full sun. It can grow in part shade. The body of the plant is rather spindly and weak and prone to lopping over, so as the plant grows and strengthens, you might want to prune, shape, and stake the plant to help it hold itself up until that main stem develops really strong and true and can create a nice bushly shape above it. Other than that, it's completely low maintenance. It can handle hard frost. It can handle hot summer. It can grow in hard clay. It's just a beautiful, low maintenance, easy breezy, stunning plant for the garden. This plant can also be used to make a purple dye, hence the indigo part of its name, and is also used by Indigenous Original Australians to catch fish. You can crush the plant in water, which will deplete the oxygen levels in the water, killing the fish, which can then be collected from the surface. So it's quite an interesting, amazing and beautiful and easy plant for the garden. Like I said, it's quite fussy to grow from seeds. The seeds just seem to come up when they want to. So my advice is, if you plant a tray of seeds, just leave the tray until they all come up. They'll come up week after week. New ones will come up. I've had them come up 6 months after plant. So you may have to bear with the seeds for a while as they all take their turns sprouting. This plant is a legume, an Australian native, and really doesn't need any nitrogen fertilizer. Being a legume, it can absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere and even deposit it into the earth for future plants to use. For me, this plant, it's all about the flowers. The bush, the leaves themselves fade into the background of the garden once the flowering's done, but it's just such a pleasure to have because it does its own thing. It doesn't need any care, and then every spring, bang, you get this brilliant sharp snap of pink and black. It's just amazing. I love Austral Indigo. Cutleaf mint bush, also known as Australian native thyme, is an incredibly showy plant in early spring. The flowers just take over the whole bush, and even though the leaves are a great herb, medicine, the Indigenous Australians crushed the leaves and rubbed them on their chest when they were sick with a cold or a flu. You can add the leaves to food to make a tea. It's just incredible, but the flowers are just stunning, and yes, they're edible as well. Cutleaf mint bush can grow quite tall, 2 meters, 2.5, sometimes 3 meters, but can handle a good trimming, so you can prune it down to the size you like. But the flowers will always grow on the previous year's growth. So if you want to prune your cutleaf mint bush, you have to prune it back straight after flowering so it can regrow through the summer for the flowers to bloom on the following spring. In other words, don't cut back or harvest your native thyme in autumn, or the flowers won't have any old growth to grow on the following spring. The best time to prune it would be after the flowers have died away in late spring to early summer, so it's got lots of time to regenerate. It's just such an easy plant to grow, part shade, full sun. It can handle full shade, but tends to grow weak and spindly, and the flowers aren't as vibrant. So it does really need a bit of sun to get color in those flowers, and can handle full sun. Once established, it can handle drought and dry conditions, but always appreciates water, and if it is quite moist soil and you are watering, it will really appreciate it and be all the better for it. Cutleaf bushmint is a herb, it's a medicine, it has fantastic flowers. I can't recommend it enough for your garden. It's a must-have. Thanks for joining me on this journey through my top 5 flowers. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and remember, have fun everyone.